All right, g'day. Week 4, Circa Contest, Vegas Horse Pools Proxy. This side is live from Dublin. I will be going to the Pittsburgh, Minnesota game tomorrow. Scott, what do we got this week?
Well, first I want to say this was not a Nebraska problem that we were delayed today. It was an international problem.
This was an international problem, and it was a Guinness problem. So...
All right, well, this could be a very interesting broadcast then. It was an amazing week here with all the phone calls I got this week. We got a lot of games to talk about. The first thing I want to start with, actually I want to start with Millions this week instead of Survivor. Because Falcons, going away, number one most popular pick at the VHP proxy service. You got to tell me, you must have something big news on this Falcons game.
Now, I think this was a pretty easy one. I know I selected it a few times, but Falcons were +1 on the Circa. Correct. And I think they're about -2 right now. So generally, I imagine it's just people playing the off number. I'm looking at the charts, and we're looking at about 68% of the money's on the Falcons. We're looking at about 81% of the master monies on the Falcons. I'm seeing money at +2.5, +2, +1, also -1. There is a little bit of comeback when it touches 2.5, and the +2 a little bit as well. But I think this was a pretty straightforward one. The number was very different. While, +1 to -2, what does it really mean in the NFL? Atlanta's been pretty horrible, especially the way they got beat up last week. But yeah, I think this was picked just purely because of the number move and the money showing up that the Falcons is the side that the players are playing. So, we'll need Washington.
Gotcha there. And the number 2 most selected game on the Millions is right there in Dublin. It's the Vikings. What are you seeing on this Vikings game? And by the way, who are you cheering for tomorrow at the game compared to who the book needs? Or are they the same?
It will be the same. And when the game kicks off, I will look at it, and then I'll get updates during the live as well, whether my opinion changes throughout the game. This was interesting because the Vikings opened 1. They went to 3 very, very quickly on Monday. It's pretty well settled in at 2.5. Early in the week, this was, 75, 80, 85% on the Viking side. It's now only about 54% of the money's on the Viking side, and we're looking at 60% of the master money. This one was pretty much showing up that early money that came in, the -1, -1.5, -2, -2.5, -3, even some -3.5, and even all the way up to 4 and 4.5 at juicy odds. At the pick'em line, once it sort of hit 3, that's when the buyback started to come as Pittsburgh as well. So while it was literally 100% of the money going one way, there's 60% of the money's on the Vikings overall, because once it hit that 3, while a few people did sort of take Vikings -4, -4.5 at, I think it was around +60, +65. At the pick'em lines, the money did start to come in on Pittsburgh at 3, which is pretty much why it's hovering 2.5. 2.5 slight favorite, but I don't really see that. Definitely not going to the 2. It may sort of tweak to 3, but it looks like it's pretty much the number that needs to be on the board right now.
Gotcha. Well, I kind of live in a mixed household here. We're half Pittsburgh, we're half Nebraska. But I'll tell you, with the ball game starting at 6:30, the Pittsburgh half of the house is going to stay in bed. So they're not as good of fans as Huskers, I'll tell you that. Because I especially remember a game Nebraska played when I was a kid in Hawaii. It was real late at night, and we had to listen to it on the radio. But nobody went to bed. Everybody listened to it. And so the other half of my household will be in bed. You'll be the only one watching the game as far as I'm concerned. But let's go on to game number 3. And that's the Patriots saw a lot of play, not only with the millions on the Patriots, but they got hit pretty hard in the survivor side too. What are you seeing on this game?
Yeah, so on this one, let me just dive in, see what the numbers are running. Generally, most of the money is at the -5, a little bit at 4.5. Once it gets to 5.5, there's a bit of buyback on the Panthers. Looking at about 54% of the money on the Patriots. The master chart's well balanced, and again, it's at sort of that 4.5, 5, and then the take back is +5.5. So it seems like a solid number. The Patriots, I mean, it was probably a good opportunity to use them if you're trying to save Buffalo or some of those things. I think I used Patriots in one, maybe two spots. Where I didn't use Buffalo last week, I've used them this week. And then obviously the Texans and the Broncos are kind of the other ones that look like the choice there. But I mean, kind of at a spot where you've got to be picking some of these ones that are maybe 5-6 point favorites. I'd rather take them at home than on the road. And the Panthers, besides last week and showing up for Falcons, did seem like that this is where you could probably use the Patriots, hopefully get away with it. Maybe not. We'll see tomorrow or today.
Well, tomorrow for us over here. But yeah, I heard the same things on a Survivor call I was on. This might be the chance to use the Patriots. So those are our top three in millions. We have three other that are real close together, and there's one game of the three that I really want to talk about. So we got to kind of lump the Packers, the Raiders, and the Chargers together. There's no real standout in this group, but let's start with the Packers. I'm hearing a lot of things about this Packer game. What are you seeing on the board there, Adam?
So this is our big bet game of the week, and this is going to be our play of the week as well, because the money is just hot on the Packers. We're looking at 75% of the money's on the Packers. However, we're looking at 98% of the master money is actually on the Cowboys. Now, this was bought up to 7.5 when the line was 7. There's a bit at 6.5. There's a chunk at 7 as well, a little bit at +8. Again, at a shorter price. But when it comes to the pros versus the Joes, the pros are all over the Cowboys. I see 6.5, 7 out there. Yet the average folks are just all over the Packers. So data-wise, play of the day here on the Cowboys. Right now, result-wise, Cowboys will be the biggest winner. Go Cowboys.
Yeah, that does not surprise me based on what I've heard this week. Let's talk about the Las Vegas team real quick. What are you seeing on this Raiders game? This is in that group of three with the Packers and the Chargers. No real standouts among the three, but let you talk about that game just a little bit.
Yeah, so we've got about 54% of the money's on the Bears. However, 82% of the master money's on the Raiders. Looking at this, majority of it, there is a strong bet there at -1. And then there's a little bit on the buyback at +1.5, although that was bet earlier in the week, and then most of the money's been -1. But I am seeing some strong plays on this. So while overall there's more money on the Bears, the sharp money is really showing up on the Raiders. And when I say sharp money, when I just look at who actually bet this thing, I'm talking sharp money.
Yeah, and I can't bet there, so I know you're not talking about me. So, okay, let's go to the last one in the group. And this one I heard a lot about this week. Early in the week, I was hearing one thing. Late in the week, I'm hearing the opposite. Let's talk about the Chargers. What does the master chart look like on the Chargers?
So if there was a bit more volume on this, this might have ended up as the play of the day. But right now, we're looking at close to just under 70% of the money's on the Chargers. Yet 81% of the master money is on the Giants. If I dive in a little bit further, the line's pretty much sitting at 6 right now, at 6.5. Few people bought it up to 7.5. And then on the flip side, sort of -5.5, -6 flats getting some action. So I think this is where the number needs to be at 6. But yeah, right now, if this liquidity was a little bit bigger, I'd be saying the Giants is probably the second play of the day. Maybe we'll check it out in the morning and close to the game time, depending again how many Guinnesses have been drunk by the time we get to those 1 p.m. games, or 10 a.m. if you're on the Pacific side. Yeah, but right now, bulk of the money's on the Chargers, but the sharp money's looking at the Giants.
Yeah, I heard from several people this week. They thought the Giants plus, and specifically a plus the 7, was an outstanding play. And the market has retreated back. It looks like about 6.5 is generally what I'm seeing right now in the market. So all those modelers that I talked to that love the Giants plus 7, looks like right now they've got a pretty good number. And it sounds like they have the second best play of the day. Hopefully it'll get upgraded tomorrow. But let's go ahead and take a look at the survivor list. And we have a short list, and it's a very, very top-heavy list. Texans is number 1. What are you seeing on the Texans?
Well, that scares me a little bit because I've used the Texans. Oddly enough, on the spread, looking at about 65% of the money on the Texans. However, 76% of the plus money is on the Titans. Again, we only need to win. We don't need to cover. But when I look at the money line, it's literally 99% of the money is on the Texans. That's sort of about 96% of the master money. So right now it looks like, hopefully, not would, these Texans are safe. Again, another good spot to use a weaker team against a very, very weak team. But yeah, go Texans. They were a big play last week that we needed to win the game. They didn't show up. They didn't get over the line. So we need the Texans this one.
Gotcha there. And everybody who didn't use the Bills before, I think including you on a half a dozen tickets, used the Bills as number 2 pick of the week. I think the line was like 15 or something, right? Isn't that the line?
15 that is the line. And yes, I definitely used them. The ones I used them on a chunk last week. Oddly enough, when I was going through this, I had planned to use the Broncos a bit more, but I have used the Broncos at some point previously. So I ended up using the Bills on those, I think, 3 entries on the bottom side of what I have. This one seems like an easy one, what some may call as a free square. I don't know if we really ever get free squares in this game we play. But it did seem like without them being sort of a Thanksgiving or a Christmas Day play, that this was the time to sort of use them out. I cannot use the Bills again on any of my entries going forward. They are officially out completely on my list. So hopefully they just do what they need to do tomorrow. Right now there's not enough volume on the game to sort of have an opinion on the spread side. So, Bills by a touchdown, 10 points, it looks like the way to go right now.
Sounds good. Sounds really good. And number 3 is the Patriots, but there's a huge drop-off. Number 3 is a huge drop-off from number 2. Did you want to cover the Patriots, or were you already good with those?
Yeah, we went through those. I mean, looking at the money line, we are looking at about 72% of the money on the money line. Based on the odds, they're kind of around that 70% chance to win based by the bookmakers. But there is a tickle on the odds of the Panthers to win outright. So, I mean, the picks are in. We can't really change them right now. But, yeah, hopefully Patriots, Texans, Broncos, Bills get across the line, and we're good to sail through another week. The upsets, I'm sure there's some Packer picks. Let's get rid of them. I'm sure there's some Chargers picks. Maybe we should get rid of them too.
Yeah.
I think Detroit Lions, I might have used one as well. So, they can win. Looking at their spread, we would like the Browns to cover. So maybe Lions by a touchdown's plenty there.
Yep, sounds good there. Did you want to cover Denver as the number 4 and last survivor team that got significant play?
Yeah, I mean, I can go to Monday night. Let me bring this up. So this is one I'll probably look at on Monday. I may end up sending it out as I do the updates there, because we're looking at close to 80% of the money on the Broncos, yet 97% of the master money on the Bengals. That's at the spread, of course. And again, only need to win, don't need to cover. But even on the money line, it's significantly heavy, about 96% of the money for the Broncos to win outright, and the master chart's well balanced. Again, a lot of people just thinking Cincinnati, no Burrows, they're just going to lose every game or majority of games until maybe he comes back. They might be just so far gone by that time that he just doesn't need to come back and he can just rest in the off season and get good for next year. But Broncos definitely going to be, I imagine, a lot of picks on them coming out of Circa as well.
Yeah, I'm expecting them to be about the number third or fourth pick. Texans and Bills just dominated everything. But should be a great Sunday. It's going to start really, really early. Probably not for you since you're in a different country now, but for the rest of us here, it's going to be a very early morning tomorrow. So it should be a lot of fun. I do want to comment on college football today because this is a really frustrating thing for me. And I wanted to hear your take on this. This weekend, there's only 2 games. You have the Penn State game and you have the Georgia game. That's all you have this weekend. And they put them on at the exact same time. I just think this is stupid. They both TV stations could have done so much better with ratings if they would have pulled these 2 games apart. And now they make everybody choose which one they're going to watch. Now, obviously, people like you and I are not affected because we have 19 TVs. But your average home probably only has one. And they've done this to themselves where they could have made so much more with advertising. I just think it's silly. What do you think on that one?
100%. I think the college had actually been doing a good job with spreading these games out. So I'm surprised they sort of landed these on at the same time. Yeah. Maybe they didn't know, although it's, these are decent teams even before the season, to not have known that it would have been ideally to have these at least not starting at the same time, where they could have been separated by kind of 3 hours to get them both as marquee games. But, looking at the charts, definitely the Penn State-Oregon game is the biggest bet game of the week. It's super well balanced on the overall money. However, looking at close to 90% on Oregon on the master money. And then the Alabama-Georgia, about 55% of the money on Alabama. However, when we go to the master money, we're looking at closer to 81% there. So looking like we need Georgia right now and probably Penn State. But, these games, I imagine, even though they're clashing with each other, should get some really good live action.
Oh, I would think so. By going away, the best 2 games of the weekend. So that's about all I have to this week on the proxy service. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to ask you, because I've been monitoring your picks a little bit as you put them in, and it looks like you're trying to build multiple different paths to the winning of the $15 million. How are you keeping all of your teams straight, or of the ones that you have used and the ones you haven't? Or are you just relying on my system to not allow you to pick it if you've already picked it?
I'm 100% relying on your system to tell me what has been used. I think that's probably one of the biggest selling points is I can go in there. I know that I had 2 dead entries, and it says up the top, this entry is dead. And then when I picked one and I go, because pretty much the only flaw or whatnot of the system is when you pick something, you've got to click back twice to get back to the original page so you can send in the next pick. Mm-hmm. So I can do that and it says you've already picked this one or something of that nature. Pretty much my strategy to date has been the first 5 has been the main play each week, and so far they've survived. I had a couple of stupid picks week 1. They're dead. And then the rest of them, again, as I said, I did have more intention of using the Broncos. When I logged in, I saw that Broncos next to them had used on 3 of the entries. So those ones I made the Bills, and then I used the Broncos on a couple of other different ones. But listen, your system is making this a hell of a lot easier to actually know what's being used, which entries are dead, which ones are still alive. Even on the millions, which I'm already pretty much just throwing my hands up in the air and just said, all right, I'm not competing this year, and yet we're only doing 4. It's just very efficient, very easy compared to, the years before where you had to type out your email, type out the email and the pieces and all these kind of things. So millions, you go through, you pick them, what's needed. But for Survivor, this is the only way I'm going to be doing Survivor going forward, because seeing those games, having my list and ideas of plans, seeing what's already got used in the parenthesis, and being able to sort of divert onto different picks on that, it's as good as it gets for me.
Okay, I want to comment about you saying you have to click the button a couple of times. What it's trying to tell you is you have been kicked out of a couple of your tournaments. So you've lost a couple of your picks. I think that's why it's making you click through that one anyway, because you're already in it. I think that's what it's trying to do.
Right. When you put in your entries and it says submitted and accepted, there's no back button. So to get back to the original screen, it's just easier to go back twice, pick the next entry, and then put in your next ones of that one.
You know what? That was never mentioned in testing. That's something that will be done in the off season. I know exactly what you're saying now. You're exactly right. There should be a back button for that. That was never brought up in testing. The biggest complaint in testing was getting, people like you that buy 10 entries for Survivor and buy 5 entries in millions. People didn't like getting the 15 emails. So that's why the email you get is only 1 for millions and 1 for Survivor, which causes a problem, though, because let's imagine you picked all the games on Sunday and you're waiting for your email. The problem is you also played a game on Monday. So that blocks you from getting an email until the last one's done. I wish there was a better way to handle that, but in testing, people said they did not want multiple spamming emails after every game. Because, for example,
I think that's the one thing of you. But when you enter, you see it. I mean, it's really easy. You just go click back twice, and then you pick the next drop-down entry. You click go, and you're back in the system. It's not a hindrance or a pain in the ass or anything like that. It's actually, once you get used to the process, you see that it's submitted, you go back twice, you get onto the next page, the original page. Then you go from entry 2 to entry 3, click go, and then you can sort of enter those things as well. So it is what it is, but I tell you, it's a hell of a lot easier than proxies I used 4 or 5 years ago trying to get this shit in order.
Yeah.
This is log in, username, password, save, click, get into the entries, click, millions, pick some random shit, because it doesn't matter right now until we get into some of these other 4-week systems or towards the end of the year or second half or whatever else where there's some booby prizes. But the Survivor's the key, and I even went backwards this week. Normally I just go entry 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way to 10. This week I knew exactly where the bills weren't used. I started at entry 10, went 10, 9, 8, got in what I needed, and then sort of, dealt with the other pieces of it. It's just so much easier when it's there, and especially that used piece of the puzzle is worth a lot.
I think so too. I like it a lot. Well, Adam, we should probably wrap this one up. Looks like we've got this one all taken care of. And like I say, everybody's getting up early tomorrow for that Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, I'll be sleeping in a little bit. I'll be getting my breakfast, and then I'll be heading to the stadium about 12:30 local time. Game starts at 2:30. Getting my few Irish ciders, and then kick into the Guinnesses later on.
Sounds real good. Well, you guys have a good night, and thanks for listening.
All right, cheers, everyone, and all the best tomorrow.